I want you to meet these other two guys because their website is NewsCastic. It's that fantastic. The co-founders of NewsCastic are with us today, Eric Paradis and Chris Ortiz. Welcome to both of you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Now, I just discovered NewsCastic yesterday. I liked you on Facebook immediately.
Awesome.
And I want to know all about the concept here. This is not just a local thing, but you're doing this in different markets across the country.
Yep.
What is NewsCastic?
Well, at its core, we're a brand new local media company. So the fact that you haven't heard about us is not surprising. We've actually been focused on building NewsCastic for the last about 6-8 months, specifically here in Albuquerque. We're using Albuquerque as our test market, but you're correct. We're doing local news nationally across the country.
Great idea.
Yeah. Our goal is to take a new and exciting approach to local journalism, and I think the industry needs a little bit of that. So
I do too.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly. That's kind of the reason this show exists. We're
Absolutely.
filling a void here, and you're filling a journalism void as well.
Absolutely. We the things that we do that are unique is that, as you probably noticed, we are 100% digital. We're online and mobile, and we focus on getting all of our distribution, or most of our distribution, actually through social media. So what that means for people that are reading our stories is that we succeed when they love our stories so much that they share them with their friends. Yeah.
Now, Chris, you come from a newspaper background, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Colorado State, studied journalism there.
Uh-huh.
I worked at a lot of papers, the Denver Post.
Yeah.
I was at the Albuquerque Journal for a while. And then when I met these guys, I just instantly fell in love with the idea. And I knew that there was a place in local news for something like this, so I immediately got on board, and it's been a crazy adventure since.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, in other ways, from what you just described, how is newscasting different than traditional media and journalism?
Great question.
Well, other than the fact that, again, we focus primarily on social media as the way in which we get our distribution, we also have what's called a marketplace. And similar to the way that you guys approach your stories, where businesses, local business in particular, are kind of sponsoring the coverage that you do, that's exactly what we do as well on a national basis. So businesses, based on who they're trying to reach at a local level, sponsor a certain story or a certain style of coverage that they're looking for, and it goes into our NewsCastic marketplace for credentialed journalists to accept and go complete that story. Mm-hmm. So it gives us the ability to do really fun and interesting things at a very kind of, almost hyper neighborhood local level nationally. So that's exactly our goal.
So with that, you're able to get a wide pool of journalists about town who can report on stories that they choose or something that's very interesting to them, rather than just the regular staff that's given assignments.
Yeah. In fact, anyone, it's a very kind of collaborative environment, so really anyone can participate. And by anyone, that includes citizen journalists, professional journalists, but even businesses and marketing agencies that are looking for a way to again get message out about who they are and what they're up to.
Sure.
One of the stories that we're going to talk about today is actually sponsored by UNM West, which is the West campus for UNM, and they were simply looking for a way to reach an audience that was very difficult to reach, the kind of younger generation.
Right.
And they're doing that by piggybacking on kind of fun stories that we cover and then ultimately distribute through social media.
Let's give everybody a little flavor of some of the stories that you cover. We've got a couple of graphics here to show everybody on some of the topics that you find on NewsCastic. Let's show the first one there, guys, and take a look. Well, here you go. 15 signs you grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And this is a really fun one, and this is written by one of our local writers here. And the reason this story took off, because everyone can relate to the story. If you lived here long enough, you immediately identify with these stories. And those are the kind of stories that you share with your friends.
Right.
And this is one of our more popular stories, and it was just a great example of how a NewsCastic story works.
And when you say share, this is like a Facebook kind of sharing environment here.
Facebook,
and not just a little bit, like a lot. So we're talking, 30, 40,000 people, read and share a story like that.
Right.
So it's a great way for us to kind of very quickly and effectively get great stories out there to readers.
And then you support the sponsors support that specific story. Is that right?
That's correct. That's
how that
correct.
works. Interesting concept.
It's a, not to get into the technical side of it,
Sure.
but it's a new style of marketing called native advertising. And
Very
one of the things that's happening out there is that, quite honestly, we've become capable of ignoring most forms of advertising.
Yes.
And so the trend now is that companies can kind of piggyback on the stories that people actually care about so much that they share them with their friends. And so that's one of the ways that a lot of marketers are, approaching kind of getting in front of the customers that they're looking for. And it's great for us too, because, this is the community that they're trying to reach. And this is the community that's sharing those stories.
It all makes sense. Let's look at a couple more stories that the guys at NewsCastic have. Here's one, the man behind that Breaking Bad mustache.
So this is a really fun story. If anyone had watched that episode of Breaking Bad, you just could not avoid that guy's mustache.
Right.
And so when I went online, it was everywhere on Reddit, Twitter, and then one of our writers, hey, I know that guy. I was like, we should write a story about him. So our writer contacted him, wrote the story. It got picked up by a lot of national sites, and the story just took off. It was a really fun story, and it was really in the point where Breaking Bad was on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Everyone could not talk about Breaking Bad, so that story was perfect for that time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole concept, how's it working so far? What kind of response are you getting? Are you tracking your numbers and seeing your audience grow?
Yep, it's actually going very well. We're really happy. We're particularly happy that people are liking our stories and
Yeah.
reading our stories. And so we're getting every month more traffic, but we're also getting a lot of local businesses on board. And it's fun to see that they're interested in participating as well. And so we saw enough momentum actually here in Albuquerque that we actually just the last few weeks launched in Fort Collins. So we're doing basically the same type of thing in Fort Collins right now and applying everything that we've learned here in Albuquerque to there. And quite honestly, it's performing as we expected and going really well.
Meeting
So
expectations.
It is.
Good.
It is, absolutely.
So in essence, you're close to reaching a tipping point for everything.
Well, yes. The more we learn, the better we are at going to additional markets. And the more markets we go to, the more we can invest in kind of the technical things behind the scenes that make it all work. And so that's our goal, is to kind of keep growing and keep expanding to future markets.
Well, the reason I think you're onto something too is I think people still want news. They just don't always want it delivered to them in the old traditional ways. They don't necessarily want to get a newspaper. They don't want to wade through all that stuff. They just want interesting.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Am I in the same wavelength with you guys?
Right. There's a thing called news snacking. Back in the day, people dedicated time in the morning to read the newspaper.
Right.
That's no longer the case. People read a story for 5 or 10 minutes and they go on to something else.
Right.
So it's just kind of snack along your workday.
Right.
And we want to provide those stories that, hey, I just need a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, something fun, engaging, exciting, and that's the kind of content we're providing for them, for readers.
We actually have data that was kind of at the basis of some of this, how we spend our time. And we're now over 50% of our time online and on mobile. And about half of that time is spent specifically on social media. So to a certain extent, we look at it as kind of, we want to put our stories where people are spending their time.
Perfect. Great idea. Now, Eric, what's your background?
Well, we all actually met each other at Reel's channel, cable television network here locally.
Sure.
And we were a good chunk of their digital team. And so about a year ago, we were actually invited to go participate in a startup accelerator called Dream It Ventures. And they're based out of Philly, but they were doing a session in Austin, Texas. So we somehow managed to gracefully break it to Reel's channel that a majority of us were leaving to go participate in this accelerator, and it worked out great. We're on good terms with them.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
and obviously enjoying what we're doing now. So, yeah.
All right. So all you got to do to check out NewsCastic is go online and read it, and there's the URL for you right there, and you'll find something that's entertaining, interesting, provocative, and I love just the flavor of it all. You guys have a nice sense of humor.
Yep.
Plus, you have a serious side to it too. That's really nice.
Absolutely.
So, I hope we see more of you guys.
Well, thank you. We would like that. Absolutely.
This is really great. So, Eric Paradis and Chris Ortiz, co-founders of NewsCastic. Be sure to check it out online. It's wonderful to meet you both, and thanks for coming down to be on.